know, when it happens, it's still tremendous. It's a big shock, you know? I'm still reeling.
There's a strange kind of silence that surrounds greatness. You can recognize it not in the loud ovations or golden statues, but in the stillness just before a director calls action on a set where legends are made. That silence has existed on countless sets where Steven Spielberg has stood behind the camera. And yet, for all his immense contributions to cinema, Spielberg himself remains something of a riddle. A director who lets his film speak louder than any interview, award speech, or quote ever could. His stories are timeless. His collaborations? Often electric. There's something uncanny about the way certain actors perform under his direction, as if he sees something in them that others don't. Or perhaps they rise to match the scale of his vision. Today's deep dive isn't about just favorites. It's not a list of endorsements or trophies. It's about patterns, relationships, and trust. It's about the actors who consistently rise in Spielberg's world, and what that tells us about both them and him. When Spielberg selects an actor, he listens for something beneath the surface. It is not about fame or image. It is about truth. He observes the face, not just for expression, but for presence. A face that carries emotion without speaking. A look that holds conflict, softness, and depth all at once. For Spielberg, the right actor does not perform feelings. They live them. The camera catches what cannot be rehearsed. He knows when a face tells more than a line of dialogue ever could. Henry Thomas, a quiet name at the time, became Elliot in E.T., not through polish or experience, but through feeling. Spielberg watched Thomas bring real emotion into the room. Not crafted, not practiced, just present. That was practiced, analog. No big scene. What mapped that spark of realness in his eyes? Spielberg later said he cried during that audition. It was not acting. It was truth-showing, was enough uninvited. This way of choosing actors does not follow formulas. It is not about who sells tickets. It is about who belongs inside the moment. Spielberg brings together casts not as puzzle pieces, but as parts of something alive. He works from instinct. That instinct has led to both familiar collaborators and unexpected discoveries. It is not about reputation. It is about emotional weight. Who can hold it? Who can carry it without collapsing into performance? Consider Lincoln. Spielberg did not want someone to imitate Abraham Lincoln. He wanted someone to carry Lincoln's humanity. Daniel Day-Lewis stepped into that with care, not by mimicking voice or posture, but by giving Lincoln quiet breath. You could see the burden, the pause before speaking, and the cost of each decision. That was not style, it was substance, the kind that does not announce itself, but settles in. Spielberg's trust in the face is a belief in the unseen, a kind of faith that the camera will find what words miss. He invites actors who allow themselves to be watched without armor, not to impress, but to exist. Not every director works this way. Many rely on control. Spielberg leans into surrender. He does not ask for perfection. He asks for presence. In every project, his casting reflects that same search. A search for something quiet and honest. The type of performance that does not end with the scene. It lingers, it follows you. It stays not because of volume, but because of truth. Spielberg trusts that audiences will feel what is real. He trusts that a single look, if given with honesty, can hold the entire weight of a story. That trust is what makes his casting feel so personal. It is not just about finding the right person for a part. It is about finding the right soul for a story. There is a distinct pattern in Spielberg's casting choices over the years. Among the many acclaimed actors he has worked with, a small group continues to return, film after film. This is not coincidence. These recurring collaborations reflect a kind of artistic shorthand, a rhythm of trust and understanding built across time. Spielberg does not revisit actors out of habit. He returns to them because they bring a quality that aligns with his vision, a consistent emotional truth that can hold the weight of his stories. Tom Hanks remains the most enduring of these collaborators. Since their first project together, Saving Private Ryan, Hanks has played central roles in some of Spielberg's most human-focused films. From the cat-and-mouse charm of Catch Me If You Can, to the isolated vulnerability in The Terminal, and the quiet conviction of Bridge of Spies, Hanks adapts without losing the grounded essence that defines his work. Spielberg has described him as someone who naturally carries integrity. It is not about being flawless or heroic. It is about presenting a character that feels morally anchored, even when surrounded by chaos. In The Post, Hanks delivers measured strength without bravado, reflecting Spielberg's preference for performances that build from within rather than rely on surface. Harrison Ford's connection to Spielberg goes beyond the popularity of Indiana Jones. Ford's presence brings a physicality that never feels overplayed. He understands the tone Spielberg aims for, serious when necessary, but never flat. In every Indiana Jones installment, Ford holds a balance between high-energy storytelling and subtle character grounding. Spielberg saw early that Ford could manage both spectacle and restraint. That became vital when tackling stories that balance action with history and fantasy with consequence. Ford's intensity never overshadows the human side of the characters he plays. He brings the kind of discipline that allows Spielberg to explore large themes without losing focus on the individual. Mark Rylance's arrival into Spielberg's creative circle added a different dimension. Rylance is not the kind of actor who overwhelms a scene. He listens more than he speaks, and when he does speak, it feels earned. In Bridge of Spies, Spielberg used Rylance's quiet presence as a contrast to the high-stakes tension around him. That calmness became the emotional center of the film. Rylance continued to bring subtle weight in The BFG and Ready Player One, often portraying figures who guide others through confusion or conflict. Spielberg appears drawn to Rylance not for his versatility, but for his consistency. He can hold a moment without pushing it. He understands that not all truth needs to be loud. That sense of stillness serves Spielberg's direction, where silence often says more than movement. These actors return to Spielberg's work not only because they are good at what they do, but also because they understand the emotional temperature of his films. Spielberg's stories often ask questions about responsibility, empathy, and resilience. They move between intimacy and scope, and that range requires actors who can shift between tones without losing authenticity. With Hanks, Ford, and Rylance, Spielberg has found voices that echo his own commitment to human storytelling. Their performances do not just serve the script, they become part of its core. The repetition is not repetition for its own sake. It is a sign of how much Spielberg values shared language between director and performer. In an industry driven by novelty, Spielberg's return to familiar faces reflect a deeper creative logic. These are not just actors. They are collaborators with whom he continues to explore the complexities of character, moment after moment, film after film. There are moments in Spielberg's filmography when a single collaboration leaves a lasting impact. These are not frequent pairings or ongoing partnerships. They happen once, but the result shifts something. In the actor, in the audience, and sometimes in the industry. Spielberg approaches casting with precision, not just looking for talent, but for something specific, in a performer that aligns with the emotional demands of the story. When he works with an actor only once, it is never incidental. The choice is deliberate, and the effect is often lasting. Whoopi Goldberg's role in The Color Purple marked a significant turning point. Known previously for her work in comedy, she was not the obvious choice for Celie. But Spielberg looked beyond expectation. He saw a depth that had not yet been explored on screen. In The Color Purple, Goldberg does not perform pain. She carries it, absorbs it, and slowly lets it transform into strength. Her portrayal is restrained, almost silent in parts, and that silence becomes the emotional weight of the film. This performance did more than earn critical acclaim. It redefined Goldberg's path in cinema. She emerged from that role with a new understanding of her range, and Hollywood saw her through a different lens. One role, one film. But everything changed. Leonardo DiCaprio's work in Catch Me If You Can also stands out. Before this film, DiCaprio was still largely defined by his earlier fame. He was admired for his screen presence, but Spielberg asked more from him. In this role, DiCaprio had to carry charm and fragility at the same time. He played Frank Abagnale Jr. not as a smooth talker alone, but as a young man hiding fear and longing behind every con. Spielberg guided him toward a more grounded form of performance, one where vulnerability was not a weakness but the center of the character. The shift was noticeable. After this film, DiCaprio began to take on roles that demanded more internal complexity. He has credited this experience with giving him the confidence to move away from image and toward substance. Ralph Fiennes in Schindler's List delivered a performance that remains difficult to forget. As Amon Goeth, he did not lean into theatrics. Spielberg wanted something more disturbing, an evil that felt real, not distant. Fiennes gave a performance that revealed cruelty as a human choice, not just a scripted villainy. His portrayal was restrained, focused, and frightening because of how ordinary it felt. Spielberg worked closely with Fiennes to bring out that contradiction, to show how cruelty can hide behind routine, how horror can come without warning. Fiennes later said this role altered his sense of artistic responsibility. It demanded honesty, even when that honesty was uncomfortable. These one-time collaborations reveal how Spielberg's direction can unlock something essential in an actor. He does not shape them into what he wants. He sees what is already there and brings it forward, often in ways that surprise even the actors themselves. One project, one chance. But the effect lasts. Spielberg has long demonstrated a distinct confidence in young or relatively untested actors. He does not approach casting with a checklist of credentials. Instead, he looks for instinct, for presence that cannot be taught. In his view, youth is not a limitation. It is often where the most direct form of honesty lives. He trusts young performers with the material that challenges them, and he creates the space for them to rise to it. Henry Thomas was not an established actor when Spielberg cast him in E.T. During the audition, Thomas was asked to imagine saying goodbye to a beloved friend. His response was so emotionally precise that Spielberg immediately made the decision. It was not about preparation or technique. It was about connection. What Thomas gave in that moment was not a performance. It was access to something real. Spielberg recognized it instantly. That trust paid off. Thomas delivered a performance that remains deeply affecting, not because of polish, but because of vulnerability. In Empire of the Sun, Spielberg placed Christian Bale at the center of a sprawling narrative set during wartime. Bale was only 13, yet the role required range, stamina, and a kind of internal resilience that many adult actors would find difficult. Spielberg later reflected on Bale's ability to stay emotionally grounded through intense sequences and shifting tones. He called him unbreakable, a word that pointed not just to endurance, but to an ability to remain focused and present under pressure. Bale's work in that film marked a shift in how child actors were seen, not as side characters, but as carriers of real dramatic weight. With West Side Story, Spielberg brought Ariana DeBose into the spotlight in a way that amplified her range and depth. While DeBose was not a complete unknown, her casting as Anita became a defining moment in her career. Spielberg gave her not just choreography and dialogue, but space to bring emotional layers to the screen. Her performance carried joy, loss, fury, and tenderness without force. It felt lived. The recognition that followed, including an Academy Award, confirmed what Spielberg had seen early on, a talent capable of anchoring difficult emotion with clarity and force. For Spielberg, young actors are not chosen to fill a role. They are brought in to reflect something essential in the story. He trusts them with complex truths. He respects their ability to express what adults often conceal. That belief has led to some of the most enduring performances in his body of work. In Spielberg's films, empathy is not a side effect of storytelling. It is the driving force behind how characters are shaped, how scenes are built, and how silence often speaks louder than words. His approach to performance is rooted in observation. He watches his actors closely, guiding them toward truth rather than artifice. He is not interested in drama for its own sake. He wants emotion that rises naturally from character, not decoration added in post. Liam Neeson's role in Schindler's List captures this idea in its rawest form. Oskar Schindler begins as a man seeking profit, comfort, and control. Through quiet shifts in Neeson's performance, we witness a man slowly unraveling the distance between indifference and action. Spielberg never pushes for sentimental cues. Instead, he builds space around the actor, allowing Neeson to carry internal conflict in his gaze, in the small hesitations, and in the weight of choice. This is empathy as a method, not a message. It shapes the arc but never announces itself. Michelle Williams in The Fabelmans represents a more intimate application of the same belief. Spielberg drew from his own life, trusting Williams to embody the emotional complexity of his mother without explanation or justification. Her portrayal is layered with contradiction, warmth, distance, freedom, and guilt. Spielberg does not frame her through judgment. He gives her space to be full, to be flawed, and to be felt. Her performance is a reminder that empathy is not about perfection. It is about making room for contradictions to exist at once. Ben Kingsley, also in Schindler's List, and Jimon Hunsu in Amistad reflect another dimension of Spielberg's vision. Both play characters under immense pressure, but neither performance is shaped by spectacle. Kingsley's Itzhak Stern is calm, precise, almost invisible at times, but it is through this quiet presence that he becomes the soul of the film. Hunsu's Cinque, on the other hand, carries visible anguish, but even then, Spielberg pulls focus not toward anger, but toward clarity and dignity. These portrayals resist simplification. They are not positioned as victims for pity, but as people demanding to be seen fully. Spielberg chooses actors who allow contradiction to surface without resolution. He is drawn to faces that hold questions rather than answers. In his films, empathy is never convenient. It disrupts, exposes, and challenges. It is the force that makes the familiar unfamiliar and the distant suddenly recognizable. His actors are asked to carry this weight not through speeches, but through stillness, through moments where nothing is said yet everything shifts. This is the quiet thread across his work. Empathy as a lens. Not as a theme, not as decoration, but as structure. The actors he trusts most are the ones who do not hide from discomfort. They allow it to live on screen, unpolished and unresolved. And through them, Spielberg reaches past story into something more lasting recognition. There is something revealing in the names Spielberg has not worked with. The absence of certain high-profile actors draws attention to his discipline in casting. For decades, Spielberg has had access to nearly anyone in the industry, yet he has made deliberate choices about who enters his cinematic space. These choices are not shaped by trends or public expectation. They are shaped by narrative need. Meryl Streep did not appear in a Spielberg-directed film until The Post, despite her long-standing reputation. When she finally did, it was in a role that demanded quiet authority and internal conflict, not showmanship. The delay was not an oversight. It reflected how carefully Spielberg pairs actor and material. Until that moment, there had not been a story that required what Streep brings in exactly that way. Denzel Washington is another name often mentioned in this context. Both artists have expressed admiration for one another, yet they have not collaborated directly. This absence is not a missed opportunity. It is an example of restraint. Spielberg resists the impulse to merge prestige for impact. He waits until a role demands the presence of a particular voice and not before. Actors like Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Cate Blanchett are also noticeably missing from his directorial filmography. This is not a dismissal of their talent. It speaks to how specific Spielberg is about casting. He does not reach for legends to complete a roster. He selects performers who can disappear into character and amplify the emotional tone of the film. Prestige is not enough. Alignment is everything. That level of selectivity reinforces the weight of every casting decision he makes. In Spielberg's world, every role is earned not by name, but by necessity. The truth is, Spielberg's favorite actor might not even be someone we know yet. Maybe it's someone he'll discover on a small stage in a forgotten town. Maybe it's someone watching this video right now, wondering if they'll ever get their chance. What's certain is this: Spielberg doesn't follow the industry. He leads it, often by trusting actors that others overlook. His favorites aren't about industry. They're about resonance. And that's what makes his casting so unforgettable. If you found this deep dive fascinating, we'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think has given the greatest performance in a Spielberg film? Drop it in the comments below. And if you enjoy thoughtful explorations like this, go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us reach more film lovers and keeps conversations like these alive. Until next time, keep watching, keep questioning, and never stop looking beneath the surface.